I do think that embodying that unconditional love and healing and bringing out to the world is where change begins. And if that just begins in one individual, one guest, one audience member, my children, even my friends, then it was worth it.
Yeah,
then it was worth it. So I'm returning with my medicine. Hey there, welcome back to Becoming. I'm Nicole Tuduz, and today I am sitting down to share a little bit about my own becoming and story with you, with my social media manager, friend, and teammate Chelsea here with me today to interview me. I wanted to give you guys a little peek into what's made me me and really kind of share a little bit about my own journey and how I got to be the woman I am today and what were some of the pivotal moments or steps along the way that really shaped who I've become. And I think a lot of people will be able to resonate with this if you've ever faced hardships or lost yourself in your life and really had to reclaim your power. I think this episode will really resonate with a lot of people. So thanks for listening. Thanks for joining. And we're ready to dive in. You ready, Chelsea?
I'm so ready.
Let's do it.
So I've seen you give all of your guests such a safe space to share their journey and what shaped them and how they've gotten through, their becoming and their journey. But I think that we definitely want to hear more about you and your journey and how you've been shaped in those ways. I want to hear your thoughts on just how your ego has been shaped with all of your past, trauma and things that have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I've gained so much perspective with the life I've been gifted and the ability to really see things from a higher perspective and higher point of view. And one of those perspectives is that the trials and tribulations that God brings to our door and the things that we face throughout our life, they aren't meant to punish or destroy us or make us lose sight of our worth or value. They are there to shape us through resiliency, courage, faith, foundation, and just a remembrance of who we are, why we're here, and what we're really made of. And so when I look back on my life, it has not been an easy road. And not to say like my life's more difficult than others. We all have pain that we experience in different forms. I believe that. I think God puts us all through our own trials and tribulations based on the call he has for our lives and where he needs us to end up. And so it's not like I don't have a victim mentality at all, quite the opposite. I'm very thankful and grateful for everything that's happened in my life, good and bad. It wasn't always like that, but I am now. And so, with that higher perspective, when I can look back now on my childhood, it was an extremely lonely childhood and very tumultuous, very toxic, very turbulent. So from the beginning, I feel like my nervous system never really got a chance to, one, understand, comprehend, or define unconditional love and safety and what it means to be safe in my own body or sovereign from my circumstances. I sort of operated in fight or flight for most of my life, stemming from my childhood. And so I think, that played a huge role in developing my identity. So as a child, I experienced these sort of catalysts or pivotal moments that caused wounds. But a lot of the time, especially in childhood, we aren't really conscious of the fact that we are being wounded.
Yeah,
or holding wounds. Like we don't know that until they really come to the surface and you do that inner work. And so, I would say my core wounds really stemmed from definitely abandonment, unworthiness of love specifically, or being seen. I've witnessed some abuse in my life, betrayal, deception, rejection. And all of those, I think over time really began to form my identity because as a child, I could not distinguish the true self from what was shaping me at that time. Childhood is such an influential period of life. It's the foundation that's laid that we build the self upon. And when that foundation is extremely shaky, and as a child, instead of being in an environment of safety and stability, if you grow up as a child, and I know a lot of people who've had childhoods like mine, if you grow up as a child without that protection, safety, stability, and unconditional love that children should experience, you essentially go into survival mode, and your nervous system is extremely dysregulated because you're just always trying to earn love, trying to earn approval, trying to earn worthiness, trying to quiet your voice or silence your voice so that you are not a disruption, trying to read the room. You know, I am extremely empathic. Like, can read energy. I have a very sensitive nervous system. I can feel everything. And from the research I've done and therapy that I've done, what I've learned is that sort of is created. Like, definitely. Yes, it is a spiritual gift I was born with. I do believe God gave me that gift so that I could answer the call like this, right? But I think some of it too sort of manifested out of that survival mode I was in required me to read energy all the time. And to be predictive of other people's behaviors and emotions all the time. Yeah. And to know, how do I read the temperament, read the room, assess the situation, know what to expect, and then act accordingly to keep the peace. And so that was where a lot of that identity was born. And then if you add on to that the fact that I didn't really have many friends growing up. I was very much a loner. I just think I've always just felt wired differently, and I had a hard time really fitting in. Yeah. And so I didn't have much stability at home. I sort of felt like invisible as a child. And then I really did in public as well, like at school and stuff like that. Just didn't have a big community or support system. My family was very small. We didn't have an extended family. You know, very few grandparents. I was close to one grandmother and no cousins, no uncles and aunts, you know, so it was just a really quiet life as a child. And I think a lot of that too really shaped my desire to create a loud life and be around a lot of people and to want to build a big, robust, beautiful family. It was like that planted the seed for the dream. And I wasn't realizing that that dream was really coming out of a place of lack, and that dream wasn't going to answer that lack for me. Like, I was going to have to address that wound internally on my own.
Well, just like you mentioned, like when children are in a more stable environment, they're not pulling from all these random places because they have it there, and you're basically trying to create things with blocks that don't exist. Yeah.
And I think the other thing too, I grew up as the eldest daughter, you know, and just traditionally, even in a stable household or a loving family, the eldest daughter typically has some issues. We are the parentified daughter, you know, and typically when the eldest daughter comes along, you know, you're the learning curve, right? And to an extent, my own daughter was, you know, was very young when I had her. And I think that played into it a lot too, because my mom for a lot of years was very much in survival mode. And I had two younger siblings, and she was juggling a lot and really trying to maintain the peace in the home as much as possible, and just kind of protect us from, you know, everything. And I think I mirrored that in a way where I felt like I had to do the same. And so there was a lot of me not really getting to be a child. Yeah. When I look back, I don't really think I got to be a kid truly.
Yeah. A lot of times with the eldest daughter, there's just so much expected out of them, and they're like 9. Like, how is that? But it's definitely a thing for sure.
And for me, it was the burden of protection. You know, making sure my siblings were protected in that they didn't know what was going on, or they felt safe. Like I had, you know, wanted to keep my whole family safe. And that's a big burden, I think, for a child to carry at such a young age. And I really do think that forms like maybe those people-pleasing components and that martyrdom that I had for most of my life, where I couldn't say no to anybody. I just overgave without pouring into myself, very self-sacrificial and self-abandonment like my whole life. And I really think it stems from having to do that as a kid.
Definitely.
And needing to unlearn those coping mechanisms and survival mechanisms.
When do you think that you noticed that was the cause of that ego buildup?
Not until maybe 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. It took a long time. It took being forced to look in the mirror, when my life came crashing down. And outside of like my family life and home life and kind of being a loner, when I was I guess from being born until I was like 11, it was just pure like, survival. I mean, there were definitely good moments in my childhood. I don't want to make it sound like it was horrendous. It just wasn't a benchmark. It wasn't the normal upbringing. And when I was 11, my dad got transferred to an oil company in Houston, and 11 is a very tender time for a girl. Fun fact, actually, the movie Inside Out, they picked a young girl of that age because a study was done at what is the most psychologically sensitive and influential and most difficult time in any human's life. And it was a girl at the age of like 11 and 12.
Yeah.
And that's where most egos are formed for women. It's where the lack of self-worth and self-love typically will lock in at that point, and loss of identity. And so I was 11. He's like, we're moving to Houston. I already didn't have any, I had very few friends, very little community. I was terrified. I was like, I'm already struggling, and I was just feeling unsteady ground underneath me. And that just really threw me. So it was hard. It was really hard. And we moved, and within probably a month of us moving into the new house and trying to start at a new school, my dad let us know that he had decided to move over to the Middle East, and he left. And in his mind, he did it for his family, like for financial reasons and to build the company. That doesn't take away the effects of it.
Of course.
That was a time that, a girl at that age, she needs male influence in her life. And so he leaves, and my mom just really struggled. It was a really, really, really tough time, and sort of restarted the cycle of me getting lost in the shuffle of their survival and their figuring things out. And when I started junior high, like we had moved to a really small town outside Houston. It's pretty much part of the Houston metro now, but at the time when we moved there, it was, typical railroad town, cows and nothing else. And so everyone that lived there had lived there their whole lives. They didn't get many new people moving into the area, and they had gone to school together since elementary, preschool. Their parents had gone to school together. The whole community was very tight-knit and knew each other. And so it was a terrible, probably developmental stage to move to an area like that, because already middle school girls are vicious monsters. Like, we all know that. Adding on to the fact that they didn't get many newbies around, it really amplified the treatment I received. And I don't know why, but I was highly targeted, from essentially 7th and 8th grade were really, really bad. And when you don't have a definition of protection and love and stability, and your whole life is like just this thing you have to survive as a kid, the last thing you need is to leave your home and then enter into a new kind of hell. And that's really what my life was at that point. And there was no place I felt safe. And so I was bullied relentlessly in junior high. And hate notes in my locker telling me that my dad left because he doesn't love me and no man will ever love me because I'm unlovable. And those narratives became my inner voice. The stuff I was hearing about myself at home, that I was told at home, coupled with going out into the outside world and hearing those same echoes from people, I just really, truly began to believe at that stage that I was not worthy of love and that I was unlovable, and that there was something wrong with me. I started to feel like, okay, you're broken. You're weird. You're broken. Something's wrong with you. I remember one day, it was like right after I started, I sat down in the cafeteria, and I just remember, this is when my anxiety came into play. This is because I, for most of my life, had high functioning anxiety. And I think it had always been building through the nervous system dysregulation from my home life. Yeah. But then feeling like I couldn't escape it anywhere, it really amplified at this time. And my first panic attack, I will never forget. I went into the cafeteria to have lunch. At this point, I had kind of scoped out for a couple days, like who's who or whatever. And I saw some girls that I was like, I'll just sit at the end of their table and see if they talk to me. And I remember the inner dialogue and feeling so nervous of like, please accept me. Please don't reject me. Because those wounds were already there. And so I was always anticipating rejection.
Yeah.
And so I sat down at the end of the table, and this girl stood up on the table and walked over and yelled over me, "You don't have any friends. No one wants you here. You can't sit here." And the whole cafeteria heard and saw. And I don't know if you've ever had a panic attack like that, but it's like you leave your body and the world stops turning, and you're just like looking down on yourself. But then you're having this physiological reaction of like, my heart's racing. I can't breathe. My hands are going numb. I'm shaking profusely. Am I going to pass out in front of all these people? Right. Yeah. And so I rushed out and kind of hit the lockers on my back, closed my eyes, tears just, what have I done, at 12 years old to this has been the entirety of my life. And I like fell to the floor. And this girl comes running out because she saw and heard everything. And she had just moved to the area too, funny enough. And she sits down next to me and she says, "I'll be your friend." And her name is Erin, and she's still my friend.
I love that.
Yeah. She lives in a different state, but we connect every time we get a chance. And yeah, she became sort of an anchor for me in those years. She was probably the first person to teach me that I had value. Wow. That I could be chosen. It was a really, really special friendship that formed from that. But yeah, the bullying just went on. This one time my home was like vandalized profusely with hate messages and shaving cream on the driveway, which stains the driveway. And I didn't have a dad at home. So, my mom was the one crying tears over these words that I was reading about myself, that everyone hated me and that I was a whore, like whatever mean girls say. Yeah. So, and on my driveway in front of all my neighbors, it's whore, everyone hates you, you have no friends, move back. And that stained the driveway. And so my mom is like scrubbing, and I'll never forget the image of my mom scrubbing the driveway and like looking out the window thinking it was my fault that I had caused something and that I needed to save my mom.
Yeah.
Because she'd experienced enough hurt and I wanted to protect her from my hurt. Yeah. Just to wrap that up, I was bullied relentlessly. And that combined with the home life really is where the ego began to form. So ego, a lot of people think of ego as like confidence. It's not that. It's actually the opposite of that. So ego is an identity, a self-identity, the I self identity formed subconsciously through a variety of factors. Trauma and wounds, which is what I just covered. Feeling or being taught that in order to receive love, you have to perform, overgive, self-sacrifice, performative living. Cultural influences, societal influences, such as politics. I am so non-political now that I've awoken. I realize that it's just a game to keep you trapped in the matrix, and it's not real, guys. Sorry to tell you that. It doesn't matter what side you're on. And things like religious influences. I know so many people with religious trauma from growing up. Familial influences. So how did your home environment shape you? Mass media brainwashing. All those things contribute to the non-true self and soul essence that we talked about in the first episode. And so as humans, if we're not living sovereignly and consciously, we will accumulate these layers of identity that then shape us into somebody that we think the world wants to see or that we have to be to survive the world, instead of feeling safe to be authentically ourselves and to embody that I am mentality of I am part of God. I am part of creation. We are all one. And I am safe to be seen. I was enough the day I was created. I don't need to be anything other than what he created me to be. And so yeah, I mean, that's what I personally think shapes ego and what it's taught me. And so when you awaken and you heal and you find that remembrance and that way home to yourself, I think a lot of people think it's like you're rebuilding yourself, but it's not that at all. It's a deconstruction, a dismantling. It's peeling back the layers, shedding things that are not yours to carry, putting down weights that are not yours to carry, and realizing that the only approval at the end of the day that matters is yours and God's.
How do you think that people can recognize that? Like, how do you think that an average person would even know that their ego has been built? And it's not even them.
For me, it started with like, my life wasn't really reflecting back to me what I thought I deserved. And I had to start kind of asking myself, like, if I have such a good heart, if I know I love so deeply and so immensely and so vigorously, like, why doesn't my life reflect that back to me? And also, I think if you start accomplishing everything you want to accomplish in your career, in your family, love life, monetarily, with family, with friends, and you still feel unfulfilled, that's an indication of maybe not walking in your true path. Also, anxiety. So I believe anxiety is caused by a disconnect. Like, it's the nervous system's way of alerting us that there's a disconnect between our soul and the life we're living. So if you feel anxiety, it's because you're holding things that are not yours. And it's your nervous system, your body's way of protecting you against what is not true or what is not meant for you. And so God gave us intuition. Women specifically, our womb is like an electromagnetic thermometer. That's why women are more intuitive and emotionally sensitive than men, because God created us to be able to read energy. We are sort of the energetic guide of the relationship. And so when you feel that, especially as a woman, when you feel that in your body, you need to listen to that. It's telling you something is not in alignment with your highest self. Your highest self, who God created you to be, who you are in the divine, is trying to communicate to you through the tools God gave you, through the vessel God gave you. Hey, we're going the wrong way. We're not conscious. We're not living consciously. We're not walking towards the highest path where you're going to meet me, you know? So I think those are just some ideas I would give people for self-reflection. Depression and anxiety, I think, are very big indicators of that there's work to do. And I think we talked maybe a little bit in the previous episode about once I got to high school, everything changed. I became a cheerleader. It was really popular. I had all these friends. And when I got to college, same thing. I was like a really, really active in my university at A&M and a very prominent member of the student body in a lot of ways. And at the time, I thought that was success. But now I realize, as I had developed that ego and false self, it manifested in performative living. And so the shift happened because I broke from the true self. And so then I'm like, okay, it feels good to be seen. It feels good to be desired. It feels good to be respected. It feels good. And so I started to thrive off external validation.
Yeah. Well, because you didn't ever get that.
Yeah.
So like we said earlier, just like wanting things because you don't have it.
I was starving for it.
Yeah.
And that's what we call living from lack. When you're living from your wounds, you're living from lack. And let me tell you something, honey, there's nothing that's going to fill that cup but you.
Exactly.
Or God. Nothing. You know, I just needed to be the best at everything. Captain of the cheerleading squad, you know, National Honor Society, editor of the yearbook. Like what could I do to
like
earn my value? Yeah. I graduated like in the top 2% of my class, was automatic early admittance to A&M, and kept that theme going there. I mean, I really joined this group called Aggie Hostesses, which was such a beautiful chapter and season of my life, and where I really found a lot of community in women who I'm still good friends with today. And so it's not like I never want to sound like I'm saying live in regret or I wish I hadn't done these things. It's just a perspective of
like why
knowing the
and
why
how.
behind why you're doing them.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so I just had crafted this perfect image and kept that going. And I think that I started, and we talked a little bit about this, but I started the checking the boxes kind of way of living of like, okay, I've done these things. I'm successful. Now I'm going to do these. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have kids, you know, because that's what the Matrix wants you to do. That's what society teaches you is check these boxes, be a part of the system, you know, don't spend any time getting to know your real self. Just follow the directions. I don't think it necessarily takes trauma to form ego. Ego, the design of this world is to keep you in ego so that you never realize your own true power. Because the powers that be would be in big trouble if we all woke up to who God created us to be. If we got rid of lack and we got rid of fear, we got rid of giving our power away, and we all came home to ourselves and remembered why we're here, the whole world would change.
Yeah, for sure.
So they don't want that. Yeah. But I think that's what ego is born from and how people can kind of identify, you know, if they're living from that or their true self. But at the end of the day, not even I can tell you that. Not a therapist can tell you that. Not a psychiatrist. There's no amount of drugs you can take to get there. It's literally having the courage to spend time inward more than outward. And giving space to the voice that's going to guide you home. Because the inner voice is God. It is God speaking through you. Yeah. That's what your conscience is. There's like 4 layers to the conscience. There's like how we operate in ego. There's the subconscious. And then there's the deep conscience. And then there's the collective conscience, which is us as God creation whole. Like, you know, humans, a lot of people don't realize this, but humans were created with telepathic and spiritual gifts and abilities. We all have the capacity to have psychic abilities, but we are so disconnected from the nervous system or dysregulated that it keeps us detached from those abilities because we're all living in survival mode, driven by anxiety. So I have had the blessing of being able to get to the deep conscious level. I'm able to receive messages and downloads and really hear that inner voice and that higher self and Holy Spirit sort of guiding me every step of the way. And it's changed my whole life. I'm just living in such alignment with my truth. And so you walk in such confidence and bravery because you know the steps you're taking are true to what God has planned for you.
So when you started to realize that you had created this ego or all of these things that have happened to you since childhood had shaped your ego, instead of just continuing to live in that, what was the catalyst to make you want to dive fully deep into just coming back to yourself?
Yeah.
Like, what was that shift?
Well, my life, you know, like we talked about in the last episode, just absolutely crumbled. And it started with wanting to heal. Like when my marriage failed, that was something I never, ever, ever expected in my life. I am such a devoted, loving person. Most of my friendships that I have now are 20 plus 30 years of devotion. And so I just never thought that would be me. But that's ego. And so when the marriage started to fail, that's kind of when I started just asking myself questions and going through self-discovery of, okay, how did I get here? What is my accountability here? How did I contribute? And absolutely I did. It takes 2 to fail a marriage. Yeah. And there were things he could have done way better. And there were things I definitely could have done way better. We both made mistakes. We both hurt each other. And I just was like, I want to learn from this. I'm not walking away from this going, well, it just didn't work out and I'm perfect and the next guy will get me. You know, It was, I want to do better. I never want to go through this again. I want my love story. I want to be a wife or a woman that a man makes a man better and can be proud of, you know? And so And not just that, I want to know, it wasn't even just about men. I mean, it was like, I want to know myself because I had fully lost myself in the marriage. And so I wanted to remember who I was. I wanted to understand how things had ended up the way they did, and if there were things I needed to better understand about myself so that I could move forward with a healthier future. So I started therapy. I started reading the Bible. I started devotionals, started going back to Mass every week, never missed. And then I started therapy, and I did years and years of weekly therapy, and it helped me a lot. But then I got to a point eventually where I didn't need the therapy anymore because the ego had died off right after the awakening. And so now my truth comes from inside. But yeah, the therapy really helped to at least get me on the path of being able to see the cycles, the patterns, the wounds, and learn more about myself so that I could know the way forward.
I know that you have so much to share, and that's why I want you to kind of answer those questions, because I know that people that are watching, maybe they're not fully there yet. Maybe they haven't, dove deep into what's going on with them. So I think that that's like perfect way to put it.
Yeah. And then reading like self-developmental books, listening to podcasts like this of other people's journeys to open my mind. But yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, when the ground fell out from underneath me and I had nothing but God left, that's when I woke up. Because when you have nothing but God left, you realize there's a lot that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You realize where you've been giving your power away, where you've been leaking your energy, where you've been playing small, where you've been getting lost. It's not for show. It's for you.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that once you realize it's just you and God, do you think that subsided a lot of your anxiety too?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like I lost everything, including myself. And then I was like, wait, I still have God. I'm still breathing. God has not left me. I mean, and it's so hard to explain when that Holy Spirit sort of envelops you. It's not something you can articulate. It's truly not. It's like being washed over with such peace. Going back to your question, there was a moment, I had a call with somebody who's in the dental community but works as sort of a channeler and a medium. And she's a healer of sorts. And she walks the Rose Lineage path, which I also follow. It was interesting because the week before I had this call with her, it was Easter. And in Mass that Easter, the priest focused heavily on Mary Magdalene, which the only thing I knew about Mary Magdalene at that point was that she was a whore that Jesus saved and pitied. Like that was it, And that's really how the church frames her, which is boldly incorrect. So do your research. But they, at this particular Mass on Easter, gave as much glory to her for being the witness of the resurrection as they did to Jesus himself. And I thought it triggered something in me. Like a remembrance. I was like, why do I feel like there's more here that I need to know? Why do I feel like there's more truth I need to know about Mary? And I started to dive in to learn more about, she really was she was a very decorated and respected priestess and extremely wealthy. And she financed Jesus, Yeshua's entire ministry. So she was what we would refer to today as a baddie. And she did have things that he helped her with, but she was an oracle of sorts. And, you read in the Bible different rituals that she would do with Jesus, like washing his feet with her hair in public and anointing him with priceless oils. And all of that really happened, and so many people just don't really pay attention to her in the Bible. But anyway, long story short, I'm on this call and my friend is walking me through how you embody the divine feminine and how the woman is really created to be and exist, and where women typically will lose themselves and where she thinks, I should focus on first to find my way home. Well, in the middle of talking, she cuts herself off and starts smiling and closing her eyes. And she says to me, "I'm so sorry, Nicole. Somebody came in through channeling and they're asking to speak with you." And I said, "Okay." She said, "Hi, Nicole. It's Mary Magdalene. I want you to know that everything's going to be okay. And I'm sure a lot of people won't believe this, but I knew in my entire body, in my soul, deep in my spirit, that had happened.
Mm-hmm.
And she had no previous knowledge of all the context I just gave before.
Yeah.
She had no idea I was going down this rabbit hole, this journey to get to know Mary Magdalene. And I felt the Holy Spirit wash over me in a way I can't explain. It is a peace like you've never known. And that's when the floodgates opened to start purging the dark I've been holding. It's like she opened something in me. Mary Magdalene unlocked something in me. And I just started tears pouring down. It's like I took a first real breath for the first time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, I have felt very much a tie to Mary Magdalene. She very much embodied like high frequency living.
Yeah.
She understood energy work. She understood the quantum. And she was the one who understood Jesus's teachings the most, which is why he selected her to stay. Yeah. And why she was the only one who could mentally and spiritually comprehend the resurrection. The rest of the disciples did not recognize Jesus when he left the tomb. They didn't witness him. She was the only one, and God trusted her with the message. No, now go tell the others. And so she really embodies that like divine feminine essence of not playing small and owning your frequency, right? And really having the courage to believe in what you cannot see. And it's because she was able to do that more than the men that she was the first witness. That call in that moment was very pivotal for getting me on that rose lineage path of embodiment and integrating the light and dark feminine, or as we call it, the shadow self with the light self. Yeah. And she's really been a big part of my remembrance. Yeah.
Do you think that prior to like diving into her lineage and all of that you were in your divine feminine?
No, not yet. No.
Do you think that kind of like...
I was still just in that like prerequisite healing phase.
Got you.
Yeah. But that set me on the path for sure.
What do you think's different between that divine feminine that you embody now compared to prior?
I don't ever make myself smaller for anyone else's comfort anymore. I don't self-abandon. I walk in my truth. My steps are fully guided by the divine. Fully and utterly guided by the divine. There is no outside influence that can infiltrate my conscience, my heart, my direction, and my choices. So
I love that. So it's safe to say that everything that you've dealt with in your life, all the cards you've been dealt and where you are now, do you think that this is exactly where you're supposed to be in the moment? And do you think that that's all led you to that?
I do. Yeah. I can look back on all of it and just know it was all a portal. Every catalyst, every split from the timeline is a portal to the next evolution of yourself.
Yeah.
And so when you come to that understanding, you really do look at challenges as doorways. I feel like I've talked a lot on the show about the anointing and the pressing of the oil. God will literally, when he's anointing you, he will press you the most if he knows that your oil is needed by many others. And so you get pressed and you get the oil from the pressing, and then you get to go then anoint others with that oil. And so I do think that my life has been to produce that oil so that I can now go out and hopefully help others either to a remembrance. Like you can't wake other people up. I kind of realized that. It was a lesson I had to learn.
You definitely can't wake them up, but you can show them what it is like to be awakened and what it is like to have that ego shaped. And I feel like that's exactly what you shared today. I feel like someone watching could be like, wait a second. You know?
Yeah. And I love the quote that says the healer, because I'm a healer. I've always been a healer. Always. That's one thing I think about myself that I've never forgotten, that I've always held on to. I am highly empathetic. I can feel other people's emotions and I want to heal them.
Yeah.
And there's this quote I love that says, the healer heals herself and then returns with the medicine. And I think that's what I'm being asked to do. And not that I can save all the world's problems or save everybody or fix anybody, because I've learned, I used to try to be the fixer, especially with men. You know, you lose yourself if you try to fix people. So, and the only person who can fix you is you and God. So definitely you can't fix. But I do think that embodying that unconditional love and healing and bringing out to the world is where change begins. And if that just begins in one individual, one guest, one audience member, my children, even my friends, then it was worth it.
Yeah,
then it was worth it. So I'm returning with my medicine.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing so much. I know it's not always easy, but I feel like people that have been, you know, listening so far, they can kind of get just like a deeper grasp on like where you're coming from and how your becoming even happened. And also just how you interact with some of the guests that have been through, you know, other things similar to you.
Yeah. Everybody's story is such a beautiful masterpiece. And it is an absolute honor and privilege of mine to share this couch with so many amazing people who have impacted my life, been there for me, have stories that I know will impact others. I just feel so gifted to be chosen for this call. And I really appreciate you being on this journey with me.
Definitely.
I love you.
Love you.